When you go to the bookstore to buy a textbook, you always expect there will be one there for you. But having just the right book sitting on the shelves is not as easy a task as it might seem. Of course, the bookstore doesn't want to run out, but neither do they want books left over after the start of the term. Let's take a look at a typical textbook and follow it all the way through the production and distribution process. At each step, we'll look at the role inventory plays in the process, how and why it's controlled, and the problems with having too much or too little. We can start by going back to the textbook printer to see how they deal with inventory. This is the R.R. Donnelley plant in Crawfordsville, Indiana. They print and ship about 2 million books annually to over 700 different customers. R.R. Donnelley receives their raw materials in large quantities from many different suppliers. It is stored in warehouses until it's needed for printing or binding. When they're ready to print an order, rolls of paper are loaded on the presses, the ink rollers are cleaned and prepared for new ink colors, and the plates are aligned and secured in place. It takes quite a bit of effort to get the paper, plates, and ink all working perfectly on the press. A complete setup can take 2 hours. This is a very important step. The quality of the finished product depends on everything being just right on the press. Because of the expensive setup, the economic run size is quite large. The average run prints about 12,000 pieces. The printed paper is cut into sheets, folded into packages called signatures, and stacked on pallets to wait for binding. Because of the large run length and the different processing rates between the presses and the bindery, considerable work-in-process inventory can build up at this point. Only when all the materials are ready will the bindery begin to assemble the finished book. The signatures are delivered to the collating machine, where the individual signatures are assembled into the proper order. The package of signatures is clamped together and reinforcing tape is applied to the spine. The assembled packages are trimmed to the desired size, glue is applied to the binding and the inside covers, and the cover is wrapped around the package. Once the books are printed and bound, they're boxed for shipment to the publisher's distribution warehouse. The materials management people at the plant know just how much and what to order for each book. They know the size of the book, they know the number of pages, and they know the type and colors of ink. From this they can compute the amount of paper and ink necessary to print the book. Since the type and amount of material depends on the size of the book order, this is a dependent demand environment. In a dependent demand environment, the list of components and materials in a product is called a bill of materials. A simple bill of materials for a book might look like this. It shows the type and quantity of ink, paper, glue, tape, and cover stock necessary for a particular book. Using the dependent demand concepts of net requirements and lead time offset, orders are placed for just the required materials for delivery at the required time. Since publishers print many different books, there is considerable opportunity to combine orders when determining purchase requirements. This may change order quantities, but not necessarily order timing. Printers try to hold most of their material as raw materials inventory. It's cheapest because little value has been added. But because the printer and the bindery run at very different rates, work-in-process inventory is used as a buffer. We know inventory ties up capital that could be used elsewhere in the plant. There are expenses related to material handling equipment and people, and there's always the possibility of damage to or loss of inventory. As a result, holding cost is very important at the printing plant. But having too much inventory is only one possible problem. Having too little can stop the presses. That's really expensive. There's all the lost time, and a shortage generally means expensive multiple setups to finish the job at a later date. For this reason, printers make sure all the required materials are on hand before they start an operation. Because all this inventory is a function of the order size, it's all cycle inventory. The printing process is a dependent demand environment. The order timing and quantity requirements for all the component parts are fully determined by the production quantity of the completed book. Most of the inventory is cycle inventory, and most of the inventory is carried as raw materials or work in process. The finished books are generally shipped to the publisher as soon as they are completed. Due to the complexity and variability of the process, setup costs are very high. Therefore, stockout or shortage costs are a major concern. A considerable amount of inventory is held to avoid stockouts and extra setups, so holding costs are significant. At the distribution center, trucks deliver pallet loads of books from the printers. The Pearson Education Distribution Center holds over 42 million books in inventory and receives and ships over 40 million books each year. The quantity received and precise weights and measures of the new books are recorded into the distribution center computer system. The system assigns one of over 100,000 stocking locations, and the books are put into storage. Each morning, the computer system generates a pick list from the orders received during the previous day and prints all the necessary picking and shipping labels. Working from the daily pick list, a forklift operator picks the orders and delivers the pallets to one of 3 different areas. Full pallets of the most popular titles are delivered to the Golden Zone. An ABC analysis of the inventory determined that less than 100 titles accounted for over 50% of the full case orders. The Golden Zone was established for this high volume picking. This enables the majority of full case orders to be filled very quickly. The second area is for full case orders of books not in the Golden Zone. Pallets of these books are delivered to the full case conveyor site for picking. This area is stocked daily to meet just the specific requirements for that day's shipments. The third area is loose book picking for orders of less than 1 case. Individual cases of books are picked from the storage area and placed on gravity feed picking shelves. On the other side of the shelves, workers pick the individual books required for each order and place them in a box with the shipping label fixed to the side. The completed loose book order boxes travel on a conveyor to the packaging area where a laser scans the box and reads the shipping labels. The boxes pass over a weigh-in-motion scale where the actual weight is compared to a weight calculated from the shipping orders. If there's more than a 1/3 pound difference, the box is pushed aside for inspection. When the order is complete, the box is sealed for shipment. Boxed orders from all 3 picking areas travel along a sophisticated conveyor system to the shipping dock. A laser scans each carton and the details are checked to final time. Using this information, the conveyor automatically routes each box to one of 8 different shipping docks. Textbooks that were finished goods at the printer are raw materials at the distribution center. While an order is being picked and boxed, it's work in process, and the finished goods are completed orders ready for shipment at the dock. Because of the investment in computer systems and automated materials handling, virtually all orders are picked and shipped within 1 day. This means that work in process and finished goods inventories are relatively small. Most of the inventory is in raw materials. Demand varies considerably during the year, and the lead time from printers can be quite long. To maintain high customer service levels, the distribution center holds their considerable inventory in anticipation of demand. But this inventory costs money. The publisher has to purchase and hold the books in inventory. To keep capital requirements to a minimum, the publisher orders books in as small a lot size as reasonable. Small lot sizes, though, mean high unit costs per book, so this is a challenging decision. Other costs are important as well. There are risks associated with damage, loss, obsolescence, and stockouts. The biggest concern is stockouts, because late book orders mean dissatisfied customers. Students and faculty won't have the books they need for the start of classes, and this is a problem. The distribution center is an independent demand environment. The quantity of each book ordered is independent from any other book. To provide the desired high level of customer service in an environment where demand is highly variable, the distribution center holds a considerable amount of anticipation inventory. Most of the inventory is held as raw materials, the boxes of books. There's some work in process as orders are picked and delivered to the shipping dock, but this happens quite quickly. Stockout costs are a major concern since customer service is a high priority. Holding costs are quite high since it's necessary to carry quite a lot of inventory to satisfy the highly variable demand. Finally, the publisher actually owns all the books in the distribution center, so the cost of purchase items is very significant. The books shipped from each publisher arrive at the bookstore and immediately become part of the bookstore inventory. Like most retail businesses, the concepts of raw materials, work in process, and finished goods inventory don't easily fit. The inventory is all here for retail sale. In some ways, the bookstore has the most clearly defined decisions of these three organizations. The bookstore receives orders for specific books based on subject offerings. They know the timing and quantity demanded, and they can order with some confidence of the lead time so that books are on the shelves when students need them at the start of a term. It does take a lot of work, though. The demand for each book has to be determined separately. And other problems can arise as well. Book orders can be late, publishers can be out of stock, and more students can enroll for a subject than expected. Any of these problems can create a stockout.
This is DePaul University Bookstore. I'd like to place an overnight order, please.
When stockouts occur, the bookstore has to call around to try and find more books and get them shipped in as quickly as possible. Of course, this is expensive. To reduce this risk, bookstores often order a few extra books just to cover possible problems.
I've got the final class size estimate for Management 301.
Okay, increase your order by 10% to compensate for over-enrollment.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But too many books is expensive as well. The bookstore has to purchase the books and store them, and space costs money. While they get to return unsold books to the publisher, they have money tied up for several months and often have to pay for the return shipping and restocking. Having too many books may be just as costly as having too few. The bookstore operates in an independent demand environment. The demand for any one book is independent of the demand for any other books. While timing and quantities are generally quite well specified, subject enrollments do vary. So the bookstore carries some safety stock to maintain the desired level of customer service. The inventory is all anticipation inventory and may best be described as finished goods, though the concept applies imperfectly. The cost of stockouts is quite high, resulting in dissatisfied students and faculty and extra ordering costs for the bookstore. But the cost of holding books in inventory is also quite high and must be carefully monitored. We've seen three very different facilities, each with their own problems and solutions to ordering, holding, and controlling inventory, their own ways to answer the questions of how much and when. We've seen independent demand environments at the Pearson Education Distribution Center and at a university bookstore. At both places, the demand for any one product is independent of the demand for any other product. The printing plant is different. The demand for most of the items in their inventory depends on the demand for the end items, the completed books. The printer is a dependent demand environment. Each of these three facilities requires a different type of inventory to best support their needs. At the printer, the inventory is mostly cycle inventory. At the distribution center, the inventory is there in anticipation of highly seasonal demand. And at the bookstore, they use safety stock to maintain high customer service levels. The placement of inventory varies as well. Even though the three environments are quite different, all three of the facilities hold raw materials inventory. At the printer, these are the materials necessary to print and bind each book. At the distribution center and the bookstore, the raw materials are completed books ready to be delivered to the customer. Of the three, the printer is the only one to have significant amounts of work-in-process inventory. The distribution center has invested heavily in systems and equipment to reduce the work-in-process to a minimum, and the concept is difficult to apply at the bookstore. Finally, all three try to get the product into the hands of the customer as soon as possible, keeping expensive finished goods inventory to a minimum. Because of the complexity of the process, setup cost is extremely important for the printer. It's relatively unimportant at the distribution center and the bookstore. But all three organizations have a high stockout cost. For the distribution center and the bookstore, this primarily results from dissatisfied customers if product cannot be supplied in a timely manner. At the printer, it's again a function of the high setup cost. The cost of purchase items is a significant component of the cost structure at the distribution center and the bookstore. These three organizations experience very different demand characteristics, even though all are concerned with the distribution of textbooks. They've made different decisions on where they place their inventory, what costs to control, and what types of inventory best suits their needs. They've chosen different techniques to answer the basic inventory questions of how much and when. The decisions they've made regarding inventory allow them to support their processes at the lowest cost while satisfying the market requirements for their product and providing the desired service level to the customer.